This is Chicago. At the dawn of the 21st century, Chicago's media was dominated by a handful of major corporations. But a resistance movement arose to free Chicago's media from their clutches. One player in this movement is the Chicago Independent Media Center and its TV show, Chicago Independent Television. The Independent Media Center is a worldwide network of grassroots correspondents committed to using the tools of the media for promoting social and economic justice. You are watching this month's dispatch from the Chicago Independent Media Center.
Welcome to Chicago Independent Television, a collection of progressive video reports by grassroots media workers produced free from corporate or commercial support or interest. I'm your host, Billy. In this episode, we'll learn about the efforts of a Chicago area railroad worker as he organizes a union. We'll join a recent march against the agribusiness giant Monsanto, and we'll join a recent Chicago protest and press conference where activists oppose the use of drone airplanes. Stay with us.
Chicago Independent Television is not brought to you by Coca-Cola, whose logo is stained red by the blood of murdered Colombian labor union organizers. Learn more at killercoke.org. Coke, the drink of the death squads.
Mr. Bishop, I want to use this picture on the front page of our next issue.
Oh, come now, Nancy. We can't print a picture like that. Paper is read by people all over the city. Just think what a picture like that would do to the reputation of our newspaper.
I don't think we should hide things just because they're unpleasant. How do we stop things like this if we don't let the people know they're happening?
Welcome back to Chicago Independent Television. Mobile rail workers in the Chicago area worked with the industrial workers of the world to organize a union. We'll learn more in this segment.
We went public on the same day that we took a photo. All of us were communicating with each other. So as they called, people asking, everybody called saying, look, he just called and asked me about the union. He just called and asked me about the union. They went through the whole list. Then the next day, after that, 10 of our managers never at the yard. He was there waiting for me to get there, obviously to see if I was going to be there on time. And then a couple days later, he followed this guy, Juan Garcia, in the yard for half of his shift and started checking his engines and climbing on the engines and checking his work. That's something that would never happen until after the union drive started going.
Mobile rail unfair labor practice! Mobile rail unfair labor practice!
We organized this covertly. Mobile rail had no idea until we got up to about 98%. We drive locomotive service trucks, which you can see that one right there has been there parked for 24 hours due to our strike. And we do oil, we add lube oil to engines, traction sand, coolant, we service the toilet, we clean the windows, and we clean their cabs. Our grievance today is the unfair labor practice of mobile rail. We have filed OSHA complaints against mobile rail because they will not provide us gloves, safety vests, safety glasses, hard hats. Union Pacific employees have to sneak and give us all of our protection gear, which they're not supposed to do, because mobile rail abuses the loophole in the FRA. Well, according to the FRA, the subcontractors of a carrier do not have to provide PPE gear to their employees. And they sent us a letter claiming that Union Pacific will cancel our contract if we file another OSHA complaint, which is a violation of OSHA Section 11C. They're stressing us. They want to remove our helpers because you need 2 people to do this job. Our situation awareness gets distorted when we are overworked. With 2 people, it's too much work. They want 1 person to do this work by themselves, endangering ourselves. They don't give people proper training on how to do the service. They have them trained for a couple days, and then they put them out there by themselves, and then they're stuck. They started cutting people down to 2 days a week, 3 days a week. and that never happened. The veteran people started getting their hours cut. So not only were we underpaid, but what little bit that we had started being at risk. And when what we had became at risk, we felt that we needed some rights and protections in the workplace to protect what we have and actually get the things that we need and the respect we deserve in the workplace.
UPS Teamsters 705 UPS trucks said they weren't going to come in the yard if we had strike on our signs. The Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineer Trainmen said they wouldn't come in if we had strike on our signs. The big reason why we were actually striking was because of many unfair labor practices that were going on, you know, interrogation, you know, following workers around the yard, you know, things like that. And then they fired 3 people. And they fired 3 people 3 business days in a row. You know, a Friday, 2 people were fired, and then on a Tuesday, you know, 1 person was fired. So by striking, they mean they could not fire us anymore. Try to break our, you know, our drive to, you know, when our they couldn't break our union drive. So, and also we were protesting unfair labor practices.
The other day, Tim threatened to write me up because I wanted in writing that I don't need to dump all the toilets on the engines. I wanted in writing that I don't have to clean all the windows. Because I requested this in writing, he claimed this was insubordination. I said no, I would not do a semi-good job without it being in writing. Because if I do a semi-good job, someone audits my engines a week later, I can be fired because I didn't service the engines properly.
Gotta go get this boy.
For my job to be threatened for anything like that, that's why I want the union to protect my rights in the workplace. Other people here are getting paid $10 an hour. We got people $14 an hour to have a CDL and drive that truck and service these engines when the people that do the equivalent job without driving a truck with a team of people get paid $28 an hour. So that's what some of the other people's concerns is with the big wage difference. But now they're trying to take away our helpers so that we have to do all this work by ourselves. And that's something we have to stop too. We have to protect the job of the helpers and protect our own safety. Because we work in these yards sometime in the middle of nowhere by ourselves, and if you get hurt or get killed, nobody will know. They need to have that second person.
You know, management also sent a letter out immediately stating that we were actually on an economic strike, which is false. And that's a common tactic for, you know, legal tactic that companies do. So by saying that, you know, they don't want to honor the ULP strike, which means that everybody comes back to work immediately. By telling us we're on an economic strike, which we were not, it puts us on a waiting list, and everybody has to wait for an open spot to get back in.
According to FRA, people who use Blue Flag can only work 12-hour shifts. Juan Garcia worked 24-hour shift yesterday trying to cover for Mobile Railway Union Pacific. And we told Tim today, he'd come in, meet with us and talk with us, everybody will go back to work. They still don't want to talk to us about the unfair labor practice. The unfair labor practice, firing 3 people illegally right after OSHA inspections. As soon as the OSHA inspections happened, fire, fire, fire. And when we looked at it, that was an immediate threat on us because we didn't know if we were going to keep our jobs. So we had to respond to the firings to keep the jobs of the people we have and to force them to reinstate the people that they fired illegally. Mobile Rail hired one of the biggest, most expensive union-busting attorney law firms in the country to fight us, to help them direct them on how to fight us so that we don't get our election. If we get our election, they have to recognize us as an actual union and negotiate a contract. Mobile Rail's doing everything they can to avoid that. We had the 98% support before we even filed the election.
We won by a huge margin, you know, not even close. Even with the 3 people that were fired, you know, even without them, we still won by a large margin. You know, only 5 people voted, you know, against it. Everybody else voted for it. Few people did not. 2 people did not vote, but they were on our team anyway. We think there were some things that were going on to prevent them from voting. Right when we did the unconditional offer of return, they allowed 2 people to come back right away. But after the election, they still would not allow all of us back. They sent a letter out immediately. We sent the offer of return claiming that 4 of us were under investigation for sabotage. Right now, we try to negotiate, us who are suspended getting a job back, and they refuse to do any of that because they say it's part of a unfair labor practice investigation, which is now on hold because the government shut down. So the NLRB is no longer not investigating or moving forward with this because we're waiting for them to be funded so they can start this up again. So right now, as it stands, 6 of us are still out of work. 4 of us are the suspended ones, and we're waiting on NLRB to resolve this so we can get back in there.
All of this to not give us proper personal protection gear. They don't give us steel-toe boots. Let me give you an example of the company they took the contract from. Bardi, they didn't need a union. They got $4,000 Christmas bonuses every year. They got bonuses for safety. They had guys getting paid $21, $22 an hour. The company bought their steel-toe boots. They bought their prescription safety glasses. They gave them all the PPE gear they ever needed. They had monthly meetings with them. Mobile Rail does not meet with us. We have no meetings. Our whole issue yesterday was forcing a meeting. They have no meetings with us at all whatsoever. They don't even talk to us. They try to manage this company remotely from California and other states without having to see us in person. The guy Eric who got fired, he got fired by his general manager whom he had never met in person. We have one guy named Andre, he never met anybody. He brought his own personal protection gear and got hired over a cell phone and never saw any of his management. They want to be able to have the power to hire and fire us and be able to scare us at any moment, so we can just fire you for any reason we want, whether you're doing your job or not. And they're willing to pay as much money as they can to prevent that from happening, and that's not right.
This is Dan Lin from the Illinois chapter of Normal, and you're watching Chicago Independent Television.
Oh, great rainbows
and thunderstorms
of our Creator's
brainstorms, far and wide
across the world. Our pure waters
Others are at harm. Please be a guide
for the protectors of our waters
and lands. May you break
in parts of your canyon red,
sunset orange, corn,
pollen yellow, seas, oceans,
lakes of blue, and mountain purples for all peoples of each color across the world to defend
our Mother Earth. She needs our help.
For she is our
life, and her water is our blood.
I visited in my office in Springfield with a veteran that you'll hear from today about the importance of this particular bill today. Medical marijuana that will heal and help many, many people deal with pain. Pain from very severe illnesses, whether it's multiple sclerosis, or HIV, or cancer, or muscular dystrophy, or a variety of other very serious illnesses that affect literally thousands of people in Illinois. Yeah.
Welcome back to Chicago Independent Television. Genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, have raised health and environmental questions for many people. Chicago played host to a march against the world's leading purveyor in GMOs, the agribusiness giant Monsanto, which we'll see in this segment.
We're in Chicago at Federal Plaza, marching against Monsanto. Last time there was a march, 2 million people from around the world marched in hundreds of countries to protest Monsanto and its evil practices as a biotech industry.
We're not science experiments! No! Do we have a right to know what's in our food?
Yes! We don't want to be poisoned. We want our food to be nutritionally sound.
We're tired of the corporate entities taking control of our food system and poisoning the future generations of this planet.
And you're driving out farmers that have been here for centuries, suing them because of a haphazard accident. Say a truck with their seeds goes by their field and one just happens to fall on their field.
Your office at 20 North Michigan is a symbol of the Food and Drug Administration here, an agency charged with the protection of the nation's health by ensuring the safety of food and drugs. FDA's failure to fulfill this mission by mandating either safety testing or affirmative product labeling of genetically engineered foods is a blot on the reputation of the agency.
Monsanto is the leader of poison in the world today.
We're going to lead off with Frank Avera. He's with the Water Reclamation District of Chicago, Cook County. He's an elected official. And he's here on his own.
We treat poop and pee. That's what we treat. We treat everything that you eat, everything, personal care products that you use, your cosmetics, your pharmaceutical drugs. We treat everything that you do day to day. The problem that we have is that they want us to remove everything at the back end. The problem is that when we get it, it's already in the environment. Kids are being born with 160 toxic chemicals in their umbilical cord already. That they should put on all the labels, all the toxic chemicals, so when a person comes and see what they're buying, they won't buy the product.
How do we stop Monsanto's earth-killing, market-monopolizing, mad scientist-style rampage? Should we basically resign ourselves to the fact that this biotech bully controls the dynamics of the marketplace? Should we seek some kind of practical compromise or coexistence between organics and genetically modified organisms? Just to name a few, Germany, Greece, Ireland, Japan, New Zealand, Peru, Russia, France, and Switzerland are banned. Monsanto's Roundup, the agrotoxic companion herbicide for millions of acres of the GM soybeans, corn, cotton, alfalfa, canola, and sugar beets. Its overuse has spawned a new generation of super weeds that can only be killed by stronger and more toxic chemicals.
They have so much power that they can buy off senators, they can affect our legislation, and the only way that we're going to beat this is by coming together, boycotting and saying, hell no, we're not going to stand for this, we're not going to watch our children get sick, we're not going to eat things that give us diseases, and we're not going to watch our planet rot away.
In 1914, Woodrow Wilson signed the bill that created the Fed. He thought it was one of the worst days of his life, and he had destroyed the country. He hadn't destroyed the country, he destroyed the world. Put an end to this, now!
Welcome back to Chicago Independent Television. Remote-controlled airplanes, commonly called drones, have drawn attention from anti-war activists who are concerned over the use in wars overseas. Chicago activists staged a recent protest and press conference on this issue, which we'll see in this next segment.
We're going to have two brief statements from anti-war activists who've purchased stock in Boeing in order to bring the issue of drone warfare more directly to the stockholders. And the first statement is going to be by Sarah Simmons, who is right here.
Good morning.
It's not allowed to speak. It's not allowed to speak.
Boeing Corporation was welcomed to Chicago with millions of dollars in tax breaks, and yet by virtue of its location in a TIF district, it has not paid its share to the citizens of Chicago. As a Chicago public school parent, I resent the fact that Boeing records record profits while the public schools are being defunded and closed. And as a Boeing stockholder, I want to tell the board of directors and fellow shareholders to stop manufacturing drones now. While you're busy building fortunes for your children and grandchildren, you're setting the world on a collision course that will have far more profound implications for your progeny. Shame on you for creating weapons of mass destruction that on the surface so sanitize war as to make it seem like a video game. Shame on you for promoting a myth that these bombs are so precise that they minimize casualties and make war somehow less horrible. The reality is very different. Survivors describe collecting body parts of victims so they can be buried in some semblance of dignity. They describe seeing pieces of meat on the ground and not being sure if it's goat meat or human meat. They describe drones returning 15 minutes after an attack to terrorize survivors and rescue workers. Add to these casualties the drone pilots who commit suicide at a rate double that of other veterans. To President Obama, I say, shame on you for expanding the office of the presidency, even beyond that of Richard M. Nixon and George W. Bush. You have achieved unprecedented executive power to wage war and commit acts of aggression on countries that the U.S. is not at war with, and to assassinate Americans and non-Americans with impunity and without due process. Under your presidency, civil liberties have been eroded and warrantless surveillance has increased. Under your presidency, journalists and whistleblowers have been targeted and repressed. Your expertise in wordsmithing has allowed you to cultivate an image very different from the above description. And these acts that were once impeachable have become tolerated and even supported. To the American people, I say, wake up. The agenda being pursued in our name has made the United States one of the most feared and hated countries around the world. Now that climate change has become the most urgent issue facing humanity, it is more important than ever that we find ways to cooperate with other nations and that we stop chasing fossil fuel in foreign lands. The paradigm of domination and subjugation of other peoples and of the earth is not tenable, and its continuation will certainly lead to our mutual destruction. Finally, I ask that as we mourn the victims in Boston, we also mourn those faceless and nameless victims of U.S. drone strikes who have fallen in Yemen, Somalia, Pakistan, Iraq, Iran, Libya, Algeria, and Afghanistan. Thank you.
Yes. Very good. Thank you, Sarah. The next statement is going to be from Newland Smith, also a member of the Anti-War Committee and a Boeing stockholder. Newland?
As a holder of Boeing stock and a member of the Anti-War Committee Chicago, I ask at this annual meeting of Boeing stockholders and the Boeing Board of Directors to make the decision to cease making plans for the next combat drone for the U.S. military, namely the Phantom Ray. Drone strike assassinations of civilians are prohibited according to the Geneva Conventions. When armed with highly explosive ordnance, these unmanned aerial vehicles are instruments of war. According to the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, as many as 884 civilians have been killed in Pakistan alone. At least 168 are known to have been children. As Jim Purr, a member of the New York State Upstate Drone Action on Ash Wednesday at the Hancock Air Base in DeWitt, New York said, the Reaper strikes and the United States killer drone policies have taken the lives of thousands in Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, and elsewhere. These strikes are illegal and immoral. Under international agreements which the U.S. has signed, the killer of civilians, extrajudicial murder, violation of national sovereignty, and violence of due process are all illegal. Given the growing concerns by U.S. citizens about the moral questions raised by U.S. drone wars, just a week ago, the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on the Constitution, Civil Rights, and Human Rights began an open hearing, Drone Wars, the Constitutional Counter-Terrorist Implications of Targeted Killing. On the first day of this hearing, Faria al-Muslimi, a Yemeni activist and journalist, testified. He described a recent strike on his village that killed 5 suspected members of Al-Qaeda. As he said, the purported target of the strike could easily have been apprehended, either by the Yemeni government or even by the local government, quote, if the U.S. had told them to do so. He also said that as a result of this drone strike, his villagers, quote, when they think of America, they think of the terror they feel from the drones that hover over their heads, ready to fire missiles at any time, end quote. Since 9/11, our country has supposedly been fighting a war against terror. But by our military increasing use of combat drones, we are inflicting terror on civilian populations. Boeing stockholders and the Boeing Board of Directors, I ask with much urgency that you cease making plans for Phantom Ray. Do not be complicit in this illegal and immoral means of waging war. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Drones fly, children die. 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 Drones fly, children die.
Hi, I'm Bourbon Supreme, and whenever I'm watching some sort of moving images on a screen, it's indie media for sure.
I enjoy fluoride in my water and in my toothpaste because I don't want to have control over my free will. Life is just easier that way.